Hi, welcome to everybody to our presentation about pandemics. We are going to talk about pandemics in the dates 1889 to
2010.
2010, sorry. Okay, I'm going to start talking about Russian flu. Okay, modern transport infrastructure assists the spread of the 1889 influenza. The 19 largest European countries, including the Russian Empire, had 202,887 kilometers of railroads, and transatlantic travel by road took less than 6 days, nothing significantly different than current travel time air given the time scale of global spread pandemic. Okay, Russian flu in the news. Information was scarce, conflating, and often exaggerated. Past influenza outbreaks had resulted in high mortality. Newspaper reports therefore tend to be of an alarmist or sensational nature. This style of reporting demonstrates that Mark Baum described as the Great Threat, which was a general fear to everything related to the disease that seems both perverse and perverse. Identification of virus subtypes responsible. Researchers have tried for many years to identify the subtypes of influenza. Are responsible for the 1999 to 1990, 1998, 19, okay, ¿cómo se dice eso?
¿Cuál?
Responsible
for the 1889 to 1890, 1898 to 1900s and
1900 and 1980 epidemics. Initially, this work was primarily based on seroarchaeology, the detection of antibodies, the influenza infections in the sera of elderly people, and it was thought that the 1890 pandemic was caused by influenza A subtype H2. The 1898 100
1900
1900 epidemic by subtype H3. Listo. Lo siento.
Hi, teacher. My name is Pilar Rodríguez, and I'm going to talk about the Spanish flu or the 1980 flu pandemic. The Spanish flu, also known as the 1918 flu pandemic, was unusually deadly influenza pandemic caused by the H1N1 influenza A virus. lasting from spring 1980 through spring or early summer 1990. It infected 500 million people, about the third part of the world's population at the time. The 1980 was most severe pandemic in the recent history. It was caused by the H1 virus with an avian origin. The 1980, 1980, 18 H1N1 flu pandemic, sometimes referred to as a Spanish flu, killed an estimated 50 million people worldwide, including an estimated 675 6,700 people in the United States. Despite its name, historical and epidemiological data cannot identify the geographic origin of Spanish flu. The Spanish flu infected around 500 million people, and the estimates to infected people died very greatly. Uh, but the flu is regardless considered to be one of the deadliest pandemics in the history. The sick who experience such typical symptoms, chills, fever, and fatigue usually recover after several days, and numbers of reported death was low. When an infected person sneezes or coughs, more than a half of million virus particles can spread to those nearby. The close quarters and massive troop movements of the World War I hastened the pandemic and probably both increased transmissions and augmented mutation. However, a second highly contagious wave of influenza appeared with a vengeance in the fall of the same years. Victims died hours of the day developing symptoms, their skin turning blue and their lungs filling with fluid that caused them to suffocate. In just 1 year, 1918, the average life expectancy in America plummeted by 12 years.
Hi, teacher. I'll be talking about the Asian flu. So the Asian flu was an influenza A virus subtype H2N2, a recombination of avian influenza and human influenza, probably of these. First cases were reported in Guizhou province in China, in the late 1956. It spread quickly to the neighboring provinces, one of it being Yunnan, and 1 month later, it was in Hong Kong. Another month later, it was in Singapore, India, and Australia, and it reached the UK in late June. In 1968, the virus mutated to H3N2, which caused the influenza pandemic. The virus reached worldwide distribution in less than 10 months due to international flights, fast transportation, and mutation, and it had a high mortality rate with an estimate of 1.1 million deaths.
Hi teacher, I was talking about the Tanganika epidemic of 1962. Was on through outbreak of mass hysteria and massive fictioning illness occurs in or near the villages of Kasachan on the western shore of Lake Victoria, in present-day Tanzania, formerly called Tanganika, is there with three girls and spread capriciously through to school, affecting 95 of the 159 between 12 and 80 years old. The, the symptoms of the symptoms in those affect last for a few hours to maximum of 16 days. After the school closed and the students were sent to the home, the epidemic strengthened tas- to Nashalba and to those homes several of the girls. Uh, in 270 people has been lost in the two mostly school and children and young adults. In total, uh, 13 schools closed and around 1,000 people were affected. Thank you.
Okay, hi teacher. I'm gonna talk about of the swine influenza viruses. Um, okay, it is important to mention before starting that the swine flu has been classified as influenza virus C or one of the subtypes of the genus influenza virus A, type like H1N1, H3N2, or H3N3. Well, knowing this information, the influenza virus A H1N1 is one of the descendants of the Spanish flu that caused a devastating pandemic in making during the period of 1918-1919. After the end of the pandemic, the virus persisted in pigs, and with it, the descendants of the 1918 virus have circulated in humans throughout the course of the 20th century, contributing to the normal occurrence of seasonal influenza on an annual basis. The 1918 pandemic in humans was initially associated with the H1N1, reflecting the possible zoonosis of the pathogen either from pigs to human or reversed. Okay, the 2009 to 2010 human influenza AH1N1 pandemic, popularly known as the swine flu of swine influenza, was caused by a new strain of influenza A H1N1 virus that contained a combined genetic material from a human influenza virus strain and avian influenza virus strain and two separate swine influenza virus strain. Okay. On June 11 of 2009, the World Health Organization classified it as alert level 6, that is pandemic in progress. In order to be classified at that level, a disease a disease most involve community outbreaks. On September 18 of 2010, who announced the end of the pandemic 15 months later and after it had circled the globe. The pandemic had a low mortality rate in contrast to its wide distribution. Okay, finally, the symptoms of this flu infect some people each year and is usually found in those who have had occupational contact with pigs. At all, person-to-person transmission can also occur. There are increased nasal discharge, cough, sore throat, high fever, loss of appetite, joint pain, diarrhea, and in cases of pure performance, disorientation, loss of consciousness, and occasionality death. And that's it. Thank you for your attention.
Okay.